they still don't have that. Hopefully it gets better soon
Yeah,
after we destroy that part.
in relation to South Africa, yes, there's evidence available. You can pinpoints that yes, they did help them. But related to the Pakistan, because they do have Muslims, gas problems with Muslim countries, right? So they would never help a Muslim country to build a nuclear weapon, which goes against their own security.
That's a fact. So they're openly. We can all agree that they are there to openly press and put these governments and countries, these Muslim countries down. So that way, we can't have another Ottoman Empire. Or remember back in the day when we had.
Yeah, but Turkey is pretty powerful, though.
Turkey's a part of NATO. I don't think they control their foreign policy. That's what we need to look at. Countries that have independent foreign policies as far as dealing with Israel.
Yeah, but it's a matter of time. So
They
Israel
tried
and
to
Turkey.
divide the ground in 2016 by a coup. Turkey was like the most country that has coup on the planet, like over and over and over for 80 years. So being part of NATO is just balancing that balance of power. Trying to go through with NATO.
So, for example, Amir, the country I'm from Somalia. So we had independent foreign policy in the 80s, and we had resources the U.S. wanted. We were supposed to basically give them all our resources and receive nothing, and then they destroyed our government from within. They funded different movements. One of my family members was in the government for over 25, 27 years. So.
Do this and we can get more into it when it's in the middle of the day and not like first thing in the morning like it is here. But we need to analyze what all these stories are coming out about Trump.
Oh, you guys lost your choice, man.
Oh, stupid. They're not trying to kill themselves and have a bad country. Most of these people are being destabilized from the outside, and you see a lot of these terrorist groups and these different people that are just crazy. They're being funded, like they said during the war, the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. There was actually a group of South Americans that were caught in Iraq fighting the U.S. government. They're basically CIA puppets, and they were basically inserted in there to just cause chaos. These people weren't even Muslim or Middle Eastern. It's crazy.
Yep. Hey, welcome, Nubian. Assalamu alaikum, man. How you doing today?
What's up? Long time. How are you?
Doing good. We had some people here from South Sudan, man. One person kept on supporting Israel. They gave him facts and data. I told him, I said 2012, they kicked out asylum seekers, hundreds of families out of Israel.
Yeah, South Sudan is not surprising. Yeah, those people are extraordinarily misinformed.
He'll hop in here. He does not have any self-respect. He acts like his name is Ghetto. You'll see him probably in Mahdi's room as well. Idiot.
So, Doctor, why do they support the Israeli government if they know they're wrong? South Sudanese people, they should know.
Hey, what's up, Sai? If you want to come on up, or anybody else, just unmute, come on up. Assalamu alaikum, welcome, guys.
South Sudanese people.
So do they have an issue with just like governments that are led by Muslims, or what is their issue with the Palestinian people?
South Sudan.
Yeah, the South Sudanese, because a lot of them support Israel.
They don't have an issue with some. They don't have an issue with they're a puppet.
Oh, okay.
They're independent student, so they're just so that whole state is a whole puppet state. That's why they fought for their independence against so hard, so long, and when they got it, they became the poorest, one of the poorest
countries,
countries.
yeah, but man, that lets me know, bro, that this shit is all like man-made. These governments that want independence and stuff like that. Sudan was a very powerful country, not just in Africa, but just in the region as a whole. For them to have a huge portion of their land just be divided and a whole new country created, I think that was foreign powers, man. Because you could never do that to a country like the United
Same
States.
thing with the gold. In Sudan, we have gold sanctioning because we allegedly supported 9/11 terrorists. So because we allegedly supported 9/11 terrorists, then they put that sanction. But that sanction was more so to destabilize us militarily because once they had their treaties with Egypt, they had no other major threats in the region other than Sudan. Because Sudan is extraordinary. North Sudan, we're extraordinarily against science. If we had military capability, we would be probably in Gaza, along with Iran and Hezbollah and the other different organizations, or we would send our own proxy groups. But they destabilized us 20 plus years ago when they took our number one export. Then our other exports, our agricultural exports that make the country money, most of those were out of South Sudan. They created division between North Sudan and South Sudan by way of religion. Because they try to say South Sudanese are Christian, but the majority of South Sudanese are traditionalists, they're animists. They are like nature worshippers, pagans. So they try to create that division between the two of us. We actually won the Civil War both times in 1989 and in 2011, but the United Nations still overwhelmingly voted and decided that South Sudan could stay anyway.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Look at that. And I'm pretty sure Sudan as a government, yeah, Sudan and Libya were doing really well compared to most countries just within the region. I feel like they're doing really well. And militarily, they were powerful. It's the same with our country. Like in the 70s, we fought with Ethiopia because they openly supported Zionism, and then at one point they said they were communists, and half of our land is stolen by Ethiopia, so we went to war with them. The U.S. played both sides, gave us weapons, and then took all the weapons away from us. They gave it to Ethiopia, and we drove to their capital, and we started getting bombed. And so I feel like any government that opposes Western values and or is a threat to Israel will be destroyed. If it's an Islamic country, for sure. That's what people need to realize. I feel like that's the number one thing that people should educate themselves on. That the Middle East, that entire region, all the way from North Africa to East Africa, was controlled at one point by just one major Islamic power, like for centuries. So I don't think they want that to happen again.
The Israelis are playing a long chess game, and a lot of people are focused on the West Bank. But one of Israel's number one assets that they want control over is the Suez Canal. So destabilizing Sudan, demilitarizing Jordan the way they did already, and then trying to make quote unquote allies with Egypt. All these moves is for the greater Israeli plan. So once they finish off with Gaza, then the next move is for the Suez Canal. If they control the Suez Canal, then they control global trade in the entire region.
30%. Yes, 30% of all trade coming from Asia, particularly oil, and Iran's oil coming from the Strait of Hormuz is gonna end up going through the Suez Canal.
And that's Saudi is making good chess moves as well, because Saudi has their quote unquote Vision 2030, but Saudi's being very strategic. Instead of them investing in Riyadh or Jeddah, cities that are already developed, they're investing all the new cities that Saudi is building is on the Red Sea coast, all the way north at the tip where that is. They have a project called the Octagon, which is supposed to be a seaport, one of the world's largest seaport cities that's going to be built right there to try to help keep a Muslim presence or a Muslim statehood presence in the region. I think it's also going to be proxy for military.
I have to disagree with that. The Saudis are puppets. They're controlled by Israel and the United States. They're propped up. They're the most disgraceful government probably in the last 300 years for Muslims. They're an absolute disgrace. They are openly hostile towards Iran.
I mean, I heard not.
Their fellow Arab Muslim brothers in Gaza and the West Bank, which aren't too far from the neighborhood. There may be one country in between them. They're being destroyed every day, and they have an economic treaty. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I believe that Saudi and the Saudi government, not the people, Saudi government and the Israeli government work together. So I believe they're puppets.
I am sure that disagree.
Can you just say the rabbi is just a minute. Say the rabbi is
Does it have any superior? But the Saudi
I've got two PhDs. I've got two PhDs.
Most people would hope to see. Most people hope to see some militarily based system. And most of the Gulf countries, their focus is on becoming global powers. And if they allow themselves to be dragged into a war, then they will lose an opportunity. And their opportunity to become global power is based upon tourism. So their fighting is against the racism and the prejudice towards Arabs in our countries. So it puts them in that situation. I definitely see financial moves that have been made here currently. I see financial moves that have been made, and I see strategic moves that have been made, slow-paced, not aggressive moves. As far as Iran, the conflict between Saudis and Iran historically vastly predate even the state of Israel foundation. But I get your point, and I hear that argument a lot. It's relevant, but I don't think it's reality.
It is.
Saudis.
They're openly, again, they're openly advocating for war.
Yeah, but you would have to go beyond
government, and then they're supporting people.
Yeah, but you would have to go beyond the tabloids. Like I said, I'm talking about strategic military base setups.
Yeah, no, there's about at least like 4 military, U.S. military bases.
No, I'm not
in
talking
Saudi
about
Arabia,
I'm talking about
where F-16s take off and bomb other Muslim countries.
That's not what I'm
Saudis
talking
are a complete disgrace. They're a complete
You're not
disgrace.
listening. Yeah, like I said, if you have to go beyond tabloid and understand what Saudi government is actually doing, not what the U.S. is doing through Saudi, because the U.S. is inside every single country in the region. So that's irrelevant. The point is what Saudi is doing militarily, and what they're doing militarily is they've been setting up new bases just for themselves all the way north the Red Sea coast to in between Jordan and a bridge between Egypt. They're even building a bridge. They have a bridge that they're building called Moses something, the Musa something bridge that's gonna connect Masr to Saudi, south of say again.
Can I just reply to Dr. Doctor? I believe that I mean, you made some great points, but that is a cop-out. Having economic ties, they're basically openly supporting Israel in genocide, and then they aren't taking any action with the U.S. They aren't putting pressure through economic structure. If they wanted to, if the Saudis wanted to, with the amount of oil they have, with them leading OPEC, they would say, hey, we're going to move towards BRICS. The U.S. has to cut at least 20 to 30%.
Saudi they already did that. Please hold on.
Yeah, but it took them how long? With all it took them how long to say, hey, we're going to go to BRICS if America does not stop openly?
It didn't take them a long time to go. First of all, it didn't take them a long time to go. Second of all, BRICS, as far as its organization structure for exactly what it wants to do, is relatively. BRICS didn't start catching its momentum until the war between Russia and Ukraine, and then when America started putting financial sanctions on Russia's trade, that's when Russia joined BRICS, and then BRICS became a real thing, because it's like, okay, we need major superpowers investing. Saudi Arabia is a $1 trillion country, so you're not going to get their attention just by having a couple broke countries say, hey, we're in.
Yeah, but I mean, their economy isn't diverse at all, and they know they're gonna go broke eventually if they rely too much on because think about this.
And Venezuela, it's for them to spend their money on
Venezuela.
People up. No, strategic.
No, they need to strategically put pressure on the countries. Well, that's if they are Islamic government. They aren't. So I mean, they aren't infallible.
But they're not in a position to do that.
They absolutely are. Turkey's been doing that. Turkey has been displaying soft power.
Turkey is much more powerful than Saudi's government. Massively more powerful.
Really?
And more and a stronger reputation and more control on trade, energy. Like, what are you talking? I don't think you understand the geopolitics.
I think the thing is, you support Mohammed bin Salman and the Saudi government, which again, it's your choice. But a sellout is a sellout, brother. You're arguing with reality. Reality says that this government is openly supporting genocide. They're openly supporting genocide.
Reality. It's just your lack of knowledge. It's not about supporting anyone or reality.
So Saudi Arabia is shooting down missiles headed towards Israel.
Brother, am I allowed to finish this?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It's not about supporting Mohammed bin Salman. It's not about any of the things you just said. It's about understanding what the Saudi position. And I think a lot of Muslims, what happens is they take, for some reason, they tend to forget that the House of Saud is the royal family of Saudi Arabia, not the kings of Islam. So that people confuse that, and they make it look like, oh, these people are somehow different than any other Muslim country in the world who's also standing with their hands, with their hand. So that same argument can be made for multiple other nations. If you're talking about Turkey is vastly economical and more wealthy. The Saudi government is not the kings of Islam. They're the kings of their people, their country. Just so happens that Mecca is in their country. But based on the position that they're in, both financially, people make it look like they have unlimited wealth. They have a massive amount of limited wealth. They have one of the weakest militaries in the entire region, and they are one of the most American dependent on military support. So a military campaign from Saudi is completely out of the question. Not to mention, as soon as the war in Gaza is over, and even before it began, a gun is at Saudi's head from Iran anyway. So teaming up with Iran to do much of anything is rare. The Iranian government has been calling for the fall of all Islamic kingdoms, all Arab kingdoms that are unrelated to the religions. So that's not necessarily an ally. As far as Palestinian people, Mohammed bin Salman has already made a statement that his interest is on the progression of his country, and his country is below the majority of his country is below the 35, and their interest, the people's interest of Saudi Arabia, is on the interest of the freedom of Palestine. Okay. So he said he will support his methods, but you have to make moves that you can make. People on the internet just call for missiles to fly.
I didn't call for missiles. Again, I will repeat what I said earlier. You can project soft power. No, this is all Saudi Arabia has to do. They don't necessarily have to give an ultimatum, but with their strategic, because they have one of the best resources in the world, which is oil. Strategically, they can enforce a certain amount of accountability towards the U.S. and Israel. Yes, they can. They're one of the few governments. That actually gets leeway from the U.S. Libya did it. The majority of those governments.
So I want to say this one thing, brother. So, doctor, when did you become a doctor, man? And second question is, didn't the U.S., the Saudi Arabia did do the retaliation in 1973? Control the oil and whatnot, doctor?
That was during King Faisal. But what I'm trying to state is this: that if you control water and the rest of the world is thirsty, by saying I'm going to leverage my power on water, that doesn't make people bend the knee. That makes people kill you. This is not fucking monopoly.
Man,
right?
But the oil, they can raise the price on the oil, right?
They can strategically
they've done it before.
Yes, Amir, you're 100% right.
Amir,
Why?
What happened to the Amir? Saudi king.
Hey, doctor, you have to let people talk, because I want to.
Yeah, he got assassinated, right? But the doctor, they tried to do it during Biden administration. Nothing happened. You see what I'm saying? And I don't know if you know about the Biden administration, right? It urged Saudi Arabia to increase oil production, but guess what? They actually cut down the oil. You see what I'm saying? And what I'm saying is, it's possible. Look, doctor, this was my plan, right? When the 7th of October happened, and Saudi Arabia and all of these GCC countries, they knew from the jump that what's happening to Palestinians is wrong at so many levels, right?
Excuse me,
What they could have done.
this is Morty.
Yeah, one second. Morty, one second. Morty, one second, please, brother. So, doctor, my thing is, my whole plan was from the jump after 7th of October, get together. I know they hate each other. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, all of these GCC countries, they hate each other. They could have got together on the table, right? And they could have said all together collectively, look, we're not going to buy any arms, and the oil business is, we're going to stop it just for the time being until this problem is resolved.
That's facts. That's rejecting soft power.
Hang on, two, brother, hang on. And they could have done that, right? All of them, because back then it was just one country, right? Now, in today's world, they could have done that for the time being. That would have pressurized Biden. Biden would have to be like, tell Netanyahu, shut the fuck up, give them the state, and that's it, move on. So we can, have the oil supply in America from Saudi Arabia. It would have hit global, and it's a dangerous move for everybody, right? It would hit the whole market. All I'm saying, they could have done some of this shit, but they didn't.
You're 100% right. That's how you project soft power without taking military action. The UAE, along with all other Gulf countries, have a lot of influence in the region. The U.S. and Israel can never overcome the fact that these countries are strategically important to their region. So you can't come in and just force people because you have a bigger government. The world doesn't work like that. If they get together as a collective and they take a stance, by them taking a stance and not firing a single bullet, they're gonna hold they're gonna make an even bigger impact on the situation in Palestine.
What collective? The Muslim countries?
Yes, the Muslim collective. Yes, they're all Muslim.
It doesn't work that way. You have to build that up, and they're like, there is a whole bunch of influence and a whole bunch of destruction in the education system that's been built in the whole scenario.
I don't think the Gulf countries are uneducated. I think the Gulf countries are some of the most educated countries.
Is nothing but a make for the colonizer client state in the region.
Yeah, they're puppets. I said that earlier. I know they're puppets.
Puppet. No. It's not puppet. It's the steps. So you getting colonized. Mecca didn't get colonized because it was get an uproar over the region from the beginning.
This was Doctor. No, go ahead. Finish what you...
What I'm saying is that Saudi from the beginning, nobody was gonna conquer it because it will evoke a whole bunch of craziness going around the region. It was never conquered. That's why the placement of a Muslim country because of the shrines or because of the haram, and then a Jewish country in Palestine, and then a Christian country in Lebanon. This was the movement after decolonization from the land. So by doing this, it's all connected. Lebanon the way it is, Saudi the way it is, the Jewish state as a Jewish state. So for them to play into the balance of power, they have to move according to the time frame.
I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but like I said,
what I mean is that
the countries in OPEC, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain, and these countries, they're very wealthy in natural resources. And then also, again, Saudi Arabia. But look. They have an influence in their region. They're very strong.
No, they don't.
So they are basically, they're countries that are third world. That's what you're saying. They're weak countries that have third world.
It's not like third world. They're just extraordinarily American dependent.
Have they ever been bombed?
Let me just finish the sentence.
They wouldn't get bombed because they are under the coverage of America from day one.
Let me just finish a very short sentence. The reason why they're not third world because they have the money to make it look pretty. But they have not released colonial control. That's the point. That's what they're trying to do in the middle of this conflict. That's what the growth of all these mega cities are. That's what all this investment is about. It's about releasing colonial control. Of course they're not going to get bombed. Just like Qatar is not going to respond to Iran dropping missiles on them because they can't. Doesn't matter how much wealth you have, they're still technically under colonial control and influence. They're just a pretty colonial country. They're trying to relinquish that through without using oil dependence. By using oil as a threat is only going to result in bodies and destabilizing their government, because America and other countries are not going to let you say, oh, we're going to take 30+% of the world's oil reserve and freeze it over a conflict. No one's trying to hear that shit. And when they do things like that, it only creates larger and larger problems. They're trying to do strength by peace. That's what the GCC countries have been trying to do.
Yes, but also some bullshit, Mike.
These guys are
They are.
the way you explain what's going on right now is you're just giving a cop out to the Gulf countries, but that's okay. That's your opinion.
It's not
They
like that.
are in a position to make a difference.
They are not.
Do not tell me that the Saudi government, UAE, Saudi Aramco.
They
Look up how. Okay. Look up how much they're.
Freaking money launder, prostitution invoked, freaking
I don't even know what point she's making. Doctor, I understand your point, but I don't know.
See, they did do it in the Biden administrations. They asked Saudi Arabia to produce more oil, and they did not do it.
Yes.
Joe Biden didn't ask him to do that. He said it in his interview, right?
Yes, he did. You're trying to cover for Joe Biden. Yes, he
I'm
did.
not trying to cover. No, Joe Biden works for us. We want gas prices high. So on American homes.
I will read you out the statement. The Biden administration urged Saudi Arabia to increase oil production to lower global prices after the Ukraine war disrupted markets. In response, Saudi Arabia and OPEC, including Russia, did the opposite. They cut oil production, citing market stability.
Thank you.
Joe Biden claimed
Just
he
keep
did
the point
that.
right now. He should be
And the U.S. officials were angry, accusing the kingdom of siding with Russia. Biden even warned of consequences, but no major policy change followed. Saudi Arabia Minister Abdulaziz bin Salman famously said, "We're not a school child that you can lecture." So all I'm saying is, it's possible. But the thing, I think Dr. and Z are arguing, no, it's not possible. They did do it under Biden administration.
They wouldn't do it
You
for
gotta talk about-
Palestine. They do it for
It doesn't matter, Z, it doesn't matter. They've done it.
Okay.
That premise was never my point. And what you just read is not what you're asking them to do. What you're asking them to do is leverage their oil resources in military conflict. One of the longest standing military conflicts of the modern world. That's completely different than what Joe Biden was calling for.
Doctor,
I disagree. I disagree with that, but I mean,
No, you disagree with everything.
No, I don't disagree with everything you said. You know why? One of the things you said, you actually made a great point. You said that their economy is not diverse. I'm 100%. I understand that they rely too much on oil, and they're gonna end up like Venezuela eventually if they don't diversify their economy. And then also you said there's other countries that are in the region that need to be held accountable just as much as Saudi Arabia. You're 100% right on that. So it's not all on Saudi Arabia as far as stopping Israel, but with influence, every country, doesn't matter how poor or how little it is, it holds influence.
Which country in the Middle East has the strongest military?
That would be, of course, Israel. I mean, do you consider Israel?
It's actually Egypt. It's actually Egypt. Everyone's screaming at Saudi Arabia, and Egypt has the most powerful, most modern military, and has the least American militarily influenced. And they're a military-controlled state. Their president is a general. So,
I think Egypt's a joke. Egypt's military is a joke.
Saudis have been buying.
They've been buying weapons, F-16s, F-15s for a long time.
Turkey has the strongest military.
Yeah, Turkey has the strongest military. He's
Let's
100%.
get Morty in there. I think let's hear from a Zionist perspective. Go on, Morty, because they don't want to silence Morty. Morty, let's hear you out as well. We don't want to silence a Zionist.
My PTR, I asked Google if Joe Biden has Saudi Arabia to increase oil production. He did not.
He did.
I know, but he did. He said he did not. In an interview after he returned from Saudi Arabia, he was asked, President Biden, did you ask Saudi to increase oil production? He smiled as he said, no, I did not ask them to increase oil production.
Of course he's going to say that when Saudi doesn't listen. But who runs Google? Just ask him.
Okay, Joe Biden does not want Americans. Okay, he wants high oil prices. Why? because he works for us. What do we want? We want to own all the American homes. Okay, when gas prices are high for Americans, makes it very hard for Americans to pay their mortgages. What happens when they can't pay their mortgages? We foreclose. Okay? So, I think it's about time everybody stops talking turkey in this room and starts getting down to brass tacks. Okay?
I don't agree with that part.
Thank you.
But you guys are just screaming that Turkey is the most powerful in the Middle East. Turkey's not even in the Middle East. Again, Egypt has the most powerful military in the Middle East, yet no one's part, and they're the closest.
Even Egypt is not in the Middle East, right, Doctor?
Egypt is majority in North Africa.
Egypt is, if you type in Egypt, Egypt is considered militarily part of the Middle Eastern military. And it's well known that Egypt has the most powerful military in the Middle East. They're also the closest to Israel. Yet you guys are whining on Saudi Arabia, which has
Now,
one of the
why
weakest
not?
militaries.
It's because of Egypt went already and got the 1970s,
Yes.
which is the one.
I think Morty is whining about Saudi Arabia.
I'm not whining about Saudi Arabia. I appreciate that Saudi Arabia did that.
He was whining about Biden right now.
Yes, I know. Listen, I'm celebrating Joe
Turkey-
Biden. I'm celebrating
Turkey-
Biden and Saudi.
Turkey and Egypt aren't calling for war against Iran openly, just on any occasion. Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries just constantly want war with another government, but yet they have a country on their border right next to them that's openly just killing their fellow citizens, their fellow Muslims, their fellow Arabs. Any way you look at it, there's no excuse
I thought
because
the problem was with Israel. If the problem
the problem is with Israel.
Okay, so the problem is with Israel, and I just pointed out who has the strongest military and strategically closest to Israel.
Dude,
Jump back to
again,
Saudi Arabia.
Yes, Saudi Arabia is calling for war against Iran. They need to turn their attention to the real enemy, not this fake propaganda. Again, if this country is a Shiite country, oh well,
Saudi
I'm a
Arabia,
Sunni. I'm a Sunni, brother. Listen, respectfully, I'm a Sunni. I don't even know what Shiites believe, to be honest with you. And I really don't understand their belief system too well. But at the end of the day, this is a person that is Muslim. So if we are going to claim we're an Islamic government and or republic, any one of these countries, it's not just Saudi Arabia, we can't just blame it.
Because the problem, you project.
So Saudi is just a regular country, so they're secular countries.
Listen, the Saudi government
making
does
that
not
claim?
claim. I'm not making a claim, I'm speaking facts. The Saudi government does not claim to be an Islamic regime as Iran does. The Saudi government.
well,
Hey, Amir, do you believe that?
I mean, for the longest,
Yeah, do you believe
does
Why,
not
why,
claim to be
that's what it's
for the longest time, doctor.
Does anyone believe that Saudi Arabia claims to be a secular country?
Let's get new voices out there. We got a Palestinian on the stage. Jindib, what's your take, brother? Go on.
I don't know, doctor is claiming Saudi Arabia to be an Islamic country or an Islamic government.
I said Saudi Arabia does not claim to be an Islamic regime. They're just a royal family that controls.
I disagree. I disagree. Mecca and Ishar,
It's a fact. It's a fact. The Saudi government is not an Islamic government.
The laws are about the Shia, the Sharia law.
Yeah, why would they have Sharia law if they don't believe in Islam? So they can say whatever they want.
They're an Islamic state, run by Sharia law.
Islamic state, regardless, whether they want to claim it or not. That's exactly what they are.
I'm just saying to see more here.
Earth has Sharia law. I don't know what you're talking about.
You can't drink alcohol, you can't fornicate, you can't do that. You say, yeah, there's no responsibilities about that. That's
Yeah,
like default makes it Islamic state.
people follow the Sharia in Saudi Arabia. That's 100% right. Women,
There is no other law in Saudi Arabia.
What you guys are failing to understand is, I clearly stated the government. Just because the majority of a country is Muslim does not mean that it claims to be. I'm from Sudan. Sudan does not claim to be an Islamic regime, meaning they don't make every single decision on the country based on the Quran. Neither does Saudi Arabia, neither does the UAE. However, the majority of the people are Muslim and they cater to those people. Saudi hasn't been an Islamic regime since the 1970s. You guys really don't know what you're talking about.
There's a big
This guy
difference
can't.
between the monarchy and the republic.
well, you're giving a cop out. At the end of the day, well, if they don't claim to be an Islamic, and you keep giving them cop outs on everything. So it's a good excuse for a government that failed. They failed the Palestinian. That's all I care about. They're always calling for war. They failed them. They failed them. They are. They're from basically. Okay, Palestinian people.
Basically,
Palestinian people are Arabs. And then they're majority. No. Listen. Since you're saying that they aren't, we're not going to put religion into this. They're Arabs, and this means
geopolitics. You're from Eritrea, right?
you don't. No, I'm not from Eritrea. You're from Sudan. I am from Somalia, brother. I'm not Eritrean. I do support.
Okay, you're from Somalia. So the Somalians, when Sudan right now, we're in a civil war. Imagine if I started yelling at your government about why you guys are not helping us destroy the ginger wheat.
We don't even understand the politics in Sudan, so we can't speak on that. But what I do understand, I've done my research. I've had lived in Saudi Arabia for over 30 years.
Why isn't your government helping us? We're East African, you're East African. Our ancestors were probably related.
We've been in an even longer civil war than Sudan. You're so we actually have. We're trying to rebuild right now.
So it is such thing as having your own problems and navigating it as such.
You're giving Saudi Arabia a cop-out. That's the problem. They're not the only government that does this when it comes
to... The problem is that you're trying to make Saudi Arabia an Islamic regime just because the population is Muslim and they're not.
Okay, man, that's your opinion. At the end of the day, we're just going to agree to disagree. It's not going anywhere. But
you made a policy of some.
No, I just I have. So let me tell you why I strongly speak on Saudi Arabia. I have at least 2 or 3 family members that lived in Gulf countries. I haven't personally. I grew up in America, so I can't say I haven't lived there. But what I'm saying is, I have someone in my family that spent 30+ years living in a Gulf country, understanding the law, the culture, the history, and is also a scholar as far as the deen goes. So I am getting first-hand knowledge from someone that is well qualified to speak on the subject. More than qualified.
Because they live there. Okay.
No, not just because they live there, but because they're not only educated on the politics in the country, but they're the day-to-day, they understand everything. This is a very well-educated person.
I still don't understand what this conversation is about. So what is
I'm saying this. I'm saying that the Saudi government and majority of these Gulf countries have failed in helping the Palestinian people. That's all I care about.
Okay.
They're being bombed, and they need to put pressure on Israel. That's it. That's all I care about. I don't care about what they do in their. None of that matters. All of these countries need to support the Palestinian people because not only is their population majority Muslim,
but you know that the decisions of those governments is not in their hands, right?
Yeah, there are puppets. So you're right. You're 100% right.
Can I say something really quickly? So, Doctor, I don't really understand what you mean by Islamic regime because this doesn't make any sense. King Salman, right, he literally said in 2015 during his inaugural speech, like, our constitution is the book of God and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we remain committed to the pure Islamic creed. And then in 2017, when he addressed the Shura Council, he said that the government of Saudi Arabia will continue to adhere to Islamic Sharia, which is the basis of its establishment and its constitution. And even like MBS, right, like the Crown Prince, he has like multiple interviews. Like during his interview with Al Arabia, he was like, "We will not move a single inch away from our teachings of Islam. Islam is our constitution, and we will continue on the path of true Islam, not extremism." Like something along those lines, right? There's so many quotes in modern day saying, like literally affirming that Saudi Arabia claims to follow the Quran, the Sunnah, and claims to be an Islamic theocracy. So what do you mean by Islamic regime?
Thank you. You just made a great point.
To let me respond to her. All those things you said, although they're very true, were all before 2020. Once Mohammed bin